Hello, you guys. Welcome back. This is a guest interview day. So if you are new here, hello, welcome to the Delulu Circle. Is that who we are over here at Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy?
It depends on the day. I will
Yes.
say, remember last time I was in Denver, we could not figure out why I kept losing connection, yada yada
Yeah.
yada. Well, figured it out when I am podcasting or literally on my computer in this apartment. And if you're using Zoom for some reason, it has to be the only item in the apartment that's on the Wi-Fi.
Huh.
It just will lose connection. So no one else is in here but me. Turn off the Wi-Fi on my phone. Connection's great. So that's what we gotta do.
What in the shitty Wi-Fi? That is crazy.
I feel like part of it is because not we're not in the mountains, we're in the city. But it's just so foresty. I lose connection walking to the park sometimes, and so I
Yeah.
think it's just the area. So
Hmm. Interesting.
yeah,
Well,
we figured it out.
cross fingers for good connection today.
Please.
So if you guys are new here, we're gonna jump into our interview with Trisha in just a little bit, but we always like to do a little hello intro, and we want you guys to just get to know us if you're new here and you're listening for the interview today. I'm Allie, who, if you go to YouTube, I just chopped off 9 inches of my hair. Who does that?
Yes.
I love it. We are living for it. But I'm a health and fitness coach. I focus on working with women to really work through their stress and just like the overwhelming feeling of nutrition and exercise and all of that good stuff, because that's something that I personally had experienced. And Maddie is another coach and she'll tell you about herself. But there is a big reason why we wanted to start this podcast. And it's because we're so alike in the way of like, we want to make health and fitness fun and also just create a community for women because as coaches, as entrepreneurs, like that's what we love to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and we really wanted to create the environment where you are learning more about yourself, about your health. And I've said this 500 times, but fitness and well-being is just the first steps into personal development.
Yeah.
I would not be where I am physically, mentally, spiritually, perhaps. I'm not religious, but under manifesting, all that kind of stuff. If I didn't get into fitness, and I think it's just such a cool journey, and we want to create a space where you are learning these things about yourself, but it feels like you're just chit chatting to your two best friends and not being like, here's a new study. And no
Yeah.
shade, no hate to people that do that, but I get so bored of that stuff. I want to know what bad dream you had the other night. I want to know stupid shit. Give me the tea, but then also learn more stuff. So there is so much good research that shows when you're having fun and in play, that's when you learn things a lot. You digest things and you really retain information. So I think that's makes it helpful for you to learn and grow from listening to us. But yeah. So oh yeah, and about me. Little old me, also a women's health and fitness coach, and I help women get lean and strong because they've been doing the stupid Pinterest workouts, going to group exercise classes, and they're like, okay, weight loss has stalled, plateaued. I am busting my freaking ass in the gym, nothing's happening. This is where we really make sure you are doing the right nutrition, not just eating healthy and doing workouts
Yeah.
that make sense so you build muscle. Because if you're not able to feel the muscle, you can't build it, and then you can't burn calories. That's what I get women lean and strong.
Hmm. I love. I love. I was actually in the hairdresser like yesterday and I was overhearing a conversation. This woman
Oh
was
God.
no, it was like actually like the most
Oh.
adorable thing. She was
Mhm.
maybe 75, 80, like definitely older. And she's talking about how she takes the stairs.
Love.
And she's like, sometimes it takes me a little while, but I take the stairs a couple times a day and I get a little tired, but I take a break because even though I have to use my walker, because she had I think she said something like I think it was a hip replacement. She's like, I am still trying to be independent and I don't want to lose that part of me. And I'm like, Slay, like you are just doing the most for yourself. And I love that. Like it makes me so happy to just hear like, like these older women in the wild just like still like taking care of themselves and wanting to feel strong and independent. And it's like, you don't think about that shit when you're like in your 20s and your 30s. You're like, I'm fine now. I feel great. That's so far away. And it's like,
Yeah.
it really made me smile. I love eavesdropping all the time, everywhere.
Love. I mean, we talked about my last time I was in a hair salon, how traumatic it was for me. Um, that lady was terrible, and it was just like, so I love going in and listening to people, but like my last hair visit was very traumatizing. We're not gonna go into full details about that now, remember?
I do remember. And Maddie was just saying that like she was inspired by me chopping my hair. Because okay, can I actually tell you the truth behind it? I was watching this podcast and this guy was like wearing a wig for like a cosplay. Like it wasn't his real hair. He was dressed
And it
as like
was what the hairstyle you have.
no. No,
Oh,
no, no. It was like a green, like Lady
oh,
Gaga-esque bob. Like it was like
ouch.
and so he's like, you know what? I feel so like there's something about a bob that makes me want to fight. And I was just like, I'm gagged because I'm sorry, there is something so sassy about shorter hair. And like I think I tied like beauty and hotness with like having blonde, long hair. I
Mhm.
was blonde for so like bleach blonde to the gods. Like, is she a Targaryen? No, it's just me, Allie. And
Hungarian.
one of my friends in high school called me Draco Malfoy, and I go, no, I'm more Danny. I'm more Danny and not Draco. And it
Oh,
was just silly because my hair was literally, I'll insert a picture. My hair was so, so blonde. It was like white.
was
And
it
I
fried?
really associated like beauty with like long blonde hair. And
Yeah.
then the pandemic happened and my roots were grown out. I have like pretty dark hair. Roots were grown out like insane. And I was like, I have to just go with this. Like there's
Yeah.
no way because like even at my once my the salon did open up, it was like low capacity. They couldn't blow dry because that's gonna spread more germs, all that shit. I was like, we're going for it. We are just going our natural color because I can't keep up with the highlights. And then I saw JC, I don't even know her last name, but on TikTok, her with like some like gingery copper hair. I
Was
thought
it
she was
Cowboy Copper? That
how,
was
yeah,
the
I guess that's what they call it. I'm like, okay. But I thought that was her natural color and it's not. And so I said, if she can do it and look slay, I'm going to do it and look slay. And so I think there's just this sense of just like learning how to feel like beautiful and confident like in a way that you don't feel like you have the pressure to like stay in like what like that societal norm of like this is how I always felt like you like long blonde hot pretty like that was always the thing. And then I look back and I'm like I don't even like how the blonde hair looked. Like it was a lot to take in. So this
I
bob journey is we're fighting, we are using our fighting words, but we're also coming into a you are so beautiful. You don't need hair to make you beautiful.
I resonate with that so much because there's nothing that makes me feel uglier than short hair because
Okay.
I equate youth with long hair. And I'm like, how can I be forever young? That's like
I
top
think
of
that's such a
mind.
thing though, because, does your mom have long hair?
My mom, her hair looks like, shoot, what's his name? I think he has a radio thingy on Sirius XM. He
Um,
has like
I
curly
I
fucking
don't want to
hair.
say it's Howard Stern, but is that who you're talking about?
I think it is.
Ah!
Wait, let me.
Okay, so the only reason why I said I don't want to say that is because like his hair is just like
Ah,
kind of long and curly, and but I was like, who else could she be talking about?
that's how curly my mom's hair is.
Okay, I don't think your mom looks like Howard Stern. I
No,
have
her
seen
hair is similar to
photos
his.
of her, but it's
Yeah, we'll
curly
put up
like
a
that.
photo. Yeah,
It's
it,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is crazy
yeah.
how this is
But you know
dry.
what the thing is? I have never seen your mom and Howard Stern in the same room. I love when
Maybe
people
I'll
say
make
that
a
shit.
little thing.
But she has mad curly hair.
But
Okay.
then look at my hair. Isn't that crazy? We always said I have Asian hair.
Does your dad's side of the family have like kind of thin, straight hair like yours?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So I resonate with that though, because my mom, she used to have very long hair. She had a perm like when she was pregnant with my sister and then myself, and like when she was younger, always had long hair and then would cut it like short as like a rebellious thing. Um, and then she has pretty fine hair. Like we all, my sister, my mom, we have fine hair. I have a lot of fine hair. Like
Mm.
this is a mop. It is heavy and I swear I lost 3 pounds from the hair I cut off.
I was gonna say, imagine how many girls are like have super fine hair and then their ponytail is like
Oh,
this.
that's my sister. That's my sister. It's like so crazy. And
Oh,
she's like, why do you have such thick hair? And my hair pattern is different. Like the type is definitely different from my dad's, but the
yeah,
man will never be bald. Like his hair is so, like, there's just so much hair. So I feel like sometimes, like, it just like either it comes from like your dad or your mom. Like,
yeah.
obviously, duh, that's how like shit works. But it's interesting just to see like your siblings, like different hair and all that. Cause your hair is like, it's so pinned straight and
I
your
know.
mom's being very curly. I love it. It's so crazy.
You know what's also funny is talking about like not stereotypes, but like societal standards, how we both equate our hair to a beauty trend, so to
Yes.
speak. They don't listen to this, and I won't name specifically who, but my sister's someone in her like extended family on her husband's side. She was talking to the woman, and she was saying how she was like, I really want to cut my hair like this. And she's like, oh my God, that would be so freaking cute on you.
Hmm.
And I think, I don't think she did. I don't think she ended up cutting it. And she was like, yeah, but her husband, like, hates her with short hair, like, does not want her to have short hair. Like, he thinks longer hair is just so sexy and so, like, amazing. And I'm like, so let me guess, she didn't cut it. And she's like, no.
Yep. Ugh, it's the internalized misogyny of it all. It's like I'm not going to be
Literally.
beautiful for men if my hair's a certain way. And like, I don't know. I grew up with like my dad literally being like like I respect him, but like he does not tell us what to do. He raised very strong women. My mom is very strong. Like no one is going to tell us anything. And
Love.
so it always just makes me really sad when I'm even talking to like girlfriends or just hearing a story like that of like having a partner or somebody like, like a male figure in their family like really having such, it's not like direct control, but it's like I know I'm not
Yes.
going to make them
Yeah.
happy, and it's like it's
Mhm.
like if for one thing it's hair. Like
Mhm.
okay, my thing was like if I hate it, it's gonna grow in a month, and
Yeah.
I'll just wear it in a clip and like whatever. Like
Mhm.
honestly, at this point in life, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and it just makes me sad because like sometimes it's just like that self-expression. Like I'm sitting in that chair and I'm like I'm making a choice and I'm doing it for me and I don't care. And it's like that feels powerful. And so I hope she
I
cuts it.
agree.
Go off, girl.
So
Go
do
cut that
I.
hair.
I just listened to a podcast for my favorite tarot card reader,
Oh,
and
we
we'll
are
shout
going to get her on.
she is from the UK. It's just like I gravitate towards people who have truly mastered self-expression without worrying about
Hmm.
outside opinions. I'm like, when I see like people walking down the road with like eccentric outfits or just like really themselves, I'm like, that's so fucking cool. Like, let me be, I want to
Yeah.
be you, you know? But anyway,
Yeah.
she is like that. And her, I just got into tarot card readings like, I don't know, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Love hers. Hers are always so spot on. Anyhow, her podcast is called All Sorts with Alex, and it was actually her latest episode. She just posted like last week. It was being authentic in self expression. Such a good podcast because one of the things she said is that like we learned from a young age about like self-expression and being authentically yourself from a young
Hmm.
age. We're like stifled in that growth because a lot of it's like bullying, like
Yeah.
you're not wearing what everyone else is wearing and what's cool, and we're so raised like in schools to like be like everyone else and like fit in.
Hmm.
And she said for a lot of people that do maybe ridicule you, or if you're like, likes to really wear a lot of goth stuff and do her makeup like heavy and stuff like that. Like people that make comments are because they have their own internal like struggle, or
Yep.
they think it's cringe because they couldn't do that for themselves.
Exactly.
And it's so fucking true.
We
Like,
should drop that below because I need to listen to
I
it for
am
myself.
always, I saved it. I have a list or
Is that the one
play.
you screenshotted to me? Or just her podcast in general? You might have just been the podcast in
Yeah,
general.
yeah, yeah. It's the latest one.
Oh,
But yeah, I
I
have a
love
playlist
that.
on my Spotify of like good episodes to re-listen to, and I
Mm,
added that to it. It's so true. Like, we will turn down what we love about ourselves to fit in because we're
mm.
scared of being judged by people who are judging us because they are too afraid to be themselves.
Yeah. Oh, stop. I
I
could
know.
actually cry.
I know.
That's like really, it's so powerful. And before we jump into the interview in just a couple minutes,
Oh, such a good segue. She is herself.
she is totally her authentic
Yeah.
self. Trisha will introduce herself because nobody can introduce, like, I can't introduce somebody as good as they're going to talk about themselves. And I
Mhm.
love that. But, I went to an all girls Catholic high school. You were not allowed to
Rip.
have different color hair. There was not a lot of self-expression because it had to be uniform. And that was something that there's like a trauma that I walk away with because I am pretty the norm, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I had like red hair. Like whenever you see my mic like turn red, that is the color that my hair was. And I had it for like a week, and they were like, you cannot come back to school on Monday with red hair. And I felt so just like upset because I was like, this is such a small thing and it is not hurting anybody. And why does it matter? And if somebody is feeling like upset about, like, imagine like just like some of the girls that wanted to dress, like they were a little bit more goth, they were a little bit more eccentric, they were like, you know what I mean? It's just like
Mhm.
it's so shitty. So I love that, like, people in their 20s, like going into like their 30s, they just like, you refind yourself, and I think that's so incredible, and it just makes
Yeah.
me want to like hug all the little versions of ourselves and be like, hey, you are okay. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Like, of course, being bullied sucks and it hurts. And like, I was called
Mhm.
pumpkin face a lot. I think it's because I had like orange like foundation. I was trying, like I was trying. It was the era of bare minerals, and I'm like wiping it all over my face.
Oh,
You
bare
know,
minerals.
what are you gonna do? But like as an adult,
Uh,
like I wish I could go back and be like, none of it matters. You are so loved. You are beautiful.
yeah.
You have a happy life. You have amazing friends. And like, even just with you, I can be so authentically myself that I'm just like, I literally don't care. Like I can be like so weird. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like there's no judgment. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And that's our
Yeah.
segue into Trisha because she's pretty non-conventional.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, is she waiting in the
She's in the
waiting
waiting room.
room?
So
Okay.
that was
Go right to it.
but we will allow her to introduce herself, and I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. And yeah, if there's anything you want to bring into this conversation, Maddie.
No, I'm just excited to talk to her about being so cool.
So cool. All right, let's get into it.
So, guys, super excited to have Trisha here. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Trisha Cicero, and I am a former professional MMA cage fighter. And I have been retired for about 4 years now. I am a postpartum mom of an almost 3-year-old, and I run a health coaching business to help other women lose the weight, which I discovered later on how to do without the extremes that I used to do as an athlete. So that's where I'm at now.
Awesome.
That's
And
so
it's funny.
crazy.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
We
it's all
do
right.
this a
It's all right. Chronically talking over each other.
Yes. I was gonna say we actually, Allie, you were in our same um, ICC, right?
Yep.
When we all met kind of the same time, like
Yep.
2, 3. How many years ago was that? Anyone remember?
2021.
A while
Oh
ago, yeah.
wow.
22.
Yeah,
22.
a while ago. And I remember when we like put like our little blurbs, like who are you, blah blah. Blah. And I remember I saw you put like cage fighter and like MMA fighter. I was like, holy shit, like that is so badass. Like I would love to be able to like just strangle someone like on the street randomly, like someone who deserved it. I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
How
Yeah, it's
did you get into that?
pretty crazy. That definitely is, one of the most asked questions. How did I get into it? Because I think when people see me, they don't automatically think cage fighter. I
Yeah.
don't really give off that look, and I never did, even when I was fighting. And I've actually, honestly, never been in a fight outside of the cage in my life. Like I'm the most like non-confrontational, like people pleasing, like go with the flow person. So the reason I got into it was because when I was a kid, I was incredibly shy. I was a little bit bullied. I was easily pushed around, only child. So my parents put me in karate, and I wanted to do karate. It just something about it, just from when I was 6 years old. I remember watching Power Rangers and just wanting to do karate. I was really into it. So I fell in love with it, and just inherently through doing karate, I did, kickboxing and karate tournaments as a teenager. I did a kickboxing fight, and I kind of got the bug. And then when I was a little bit older, I once again did another kickboxing fight when I was 20 years old. And I really wanted to get into MMA at that time. And again, I'm dating myself here. I'm going to be 37 this year. When I was 20, 17 years ago, there was no Ronda Rousey yet. There was no women making it a career to be a fighter. Gina Carano was like kind of new. These are like the most famous names maybe people have heard of, Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey, they are the pioneers. So at that time, when I'm 20, there's no women in the UFC. UFC exists, but there's no women in it. And Dana White is explicitly saying, who's the CEO of UFC, is saying, I'll never have women fight in the UFC. Nobody wants to watch that. We'll never have women fighters, etc. At the same time, I was trying to learn how to run a martial arts school. That's what was my passion as a young teen and early 20s. I wanted to open my own karate school. And my instructor at the time, who was going to help me open a school, said, there's no money in fighting. There's no money in it. Forget about it. You're 20. You can fight and make no money, or you can be a business owner and you can make money. So I kind of squashed the fighting dream, and I decided to try to open karate school, which I did when at 24 years old. A long drama story we don't need to get into today, but it didn't work out in the end with the organization that I was with doing karate and all of that. And a couple years later, I found myself in an MMA school. Initially, I wanted to learn jujitsu because as a karate girl, it was not something I was super familiar with. I knew a little bit, but jujitsu is the fighting on the ground. So I just purely wanted to learn. I just wanted to get back into it. I wanted to do something different. I was sick of karate for my whole life. I wanted to do it and try it out. And I fell in love with it. And I happened to be training at American Top Team, which is one of the best gyms in the entire planet for MMA fighters. The most famous MMA fighters have trained in that gym, biggest champions in the world. And so I kind of caught the bug, and some of them knew me from kickboxing and said, why don't you fight MMA? You should try it. And with a little encouragement, I just said, well, I'll just try it. If I don't like it, then I just do one. If I lose and get my ass kicked, I'll just do one and I'll never do it again. Or if I like it, I'll do another one. And so I did, and I won, and I won again, and I won again, and then I went professional, and then that was a totally different track. But that's a long story of how I got into fighting, through karate, and then later on just kind of finding it, and then losing it again, and then fighting it again. So it was a really long journey, but I was very grateful to be a part of it.
That is so, I love your parents for kind of pushing you and supporting you into like starting karate and like finding that inner voice and confidence, because as also a very shy child, I hated group sports because I just always felt like chronically anxious over here. I was always like, oh no, I'm not going to do the right things. People are going to be mad at me. Like I hated group sports, but there's something just so like that's just so pivotal to your story of like this is where I started as like this young child. I was a little bit shy, and then you found your voice, you found this power, and to just like have that story of your like career where people are like, you're not gonna make money, we don't want to watch women fight, and you're just like, okay, like I'm gonna just kind of like proving the odds, like, okay, but I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna be really good at it. Oh, I love that. I'm like picturing like a montage in my head.
Yeah.
I'm like so cringy. I'm like, do you ever just like make up scenarios? And I'm like always picturing things. I love that. Oh my God.
Uh, you
Yeah.
know what's ironic is that I listen to like a lot of Joe Rogan. Of course, he talks about like his journey, how he got into fighting, and it seems like a lot of fighters in any capacity, any type of fighting, it's a lot of like the origin story is because they were bullied or they were anxious or they were kind of scared and they wanted more confidence. And the same
Mm.
kind of applies to you, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, my parents nudged me to do it, but also, again, I really wanted to do
Yeah.
it. And it also, it gave me once I was in it, it gave me a sense of belonging that I wasn't getting in school. And again, I was very shy. I was an only child. I was bullied in the neighborhood because I was the youngest kid. I was gullible. I always got picked on. I always got bullied. And then I was like the tattletale. And I really had trouble like making friends in school and having my cliques. I was kind of a loner. And
Mhm.
I always remember as a kid feeling like when we go to karate, we all wear the same thing. It doesn't matter if I'm in band or if I'm a nerd or if I'm popular or not. We're all wearing the same karate clothes, and it's just about doing your best. It's just about trying hard and doing your best. And that's how you succeed. It's not because of this and that politics in school and cliques and whatever. So
Mhm.
that really helped me a lot. And then also with my shyness, like when you do karate, you have to yell, you have to be
Mm.
loud, you have to like,
Mhm.
and then I wanted to become a karate teacher. So then I have to teach in front of people. And at 14
Mhm.
years old, I was teaching groups of adults, adult men and women. I was teaching, 30 or 40 at a time, shouting on a microphone. And so it just really, it completely changed my life. If I had not done karate, Lord knows where I would be on, just, I mean, I saw other kids in my neighborhood, the direction they went with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, and partying and just seeing where they are later in life now.
Mhm.
I know I would have gone that same trajectory for sure. So it definitely was origin story, like complete pivotal moment in my life. Even though there's been a lot of twists and turns, like it's always kept me going the direction that I needed to go.
I love that. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm definitely like close to getting my period, but that almost just made me cry. Like the fact of like you can go to the karate studio, everyone's wearing the same thing, none of the other bullshit matters. You find that community,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of the time that's just what people are missing. And like before we were talking about this, Maddie and I, when we were just talking earlier, we were talking about like being in high school and like people being afraid to like live their authentic lives. And a lot of the time, sports really just brings people from all different like walks of life together. And it doesn't matter because like now this is your team, this is your family.
Yeah.
We all care about each other. And I
Mhm.
love that. And just like, man, like to think if you didn't have that drive to like want to start karate or if your parents weren't supportive, it's like where would your life be different now? And oh my God, like I get chills. Like again, today we are riding that emotional roller coaster and I'm here for it. But what was your first like it was like would you call it like an amateur fight?
Mhm.
Okay, what was that experience like? Because you obviously had never experienced something like that before, like because karate's different, jujitsu's
Yeah.
different, I imagine.
My first amateur MMA fight you're talking
Yes,
about.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, because I had done amateur kickboxing a couple times, and yeah,
Okay.
going from kickboxing to MMA was very different because kickboxing as an amateur, you're in a ring, like a boxing ring with the ropes,
Mhm.
okay?
Okay.
And as a teenager and even at 20 as an amateur, I was wearing headgear, boxing gloves, and shin guards, okay?
Mhm.
So the big difference now going to amateur MMA, no headgear, gloves, 4-ounce gloves, with the fingers coming out. And I did wear shin guards for my first couple of fights. So that was the same, but no head protection and you're wearing the small gloves. And now you're
Oh,
locked in the cage. And I
oh,
remember going into that cage, the cage, actually, this was every time, not just the first fight, but the cage door locks. It's you, it's your opponent, and it's the referee. That's it. Everybody else leaves the cage, and you're just like, holy shit, what am I doing? Like, it's just that moment of like, I am literally locked in a cage right now. You spend years and hours and hours and hours and hours of sparring in the gym and, getting your ass beat and kicking people's asses and like hours and hours of doing it, but nothing compares to being in the cage. There's a crowd of people. And there was a lot of pressure for me too, because I had, right now, currently I live in Georgia, but for about half my life, for 17 years, I lived in South Florida, and that's where I fought, that's where I trained. And I had built a community there. That's where I had opened a karate school. That's where I had taught karate for years before then. And I had a crowd of people for my amateur fight. I was the co-main event. I was the co-main
Oh,
event. I sold tons of tickets. I had family fly in. I had friends. I had students, former students. I mean, there was crowds of people chanting my name, and it's like my first time being locked in the cage. It was
Oh man.
terrifying, and exhilarating. And I actually won. I think it was in the third round. I armbarred her, but it was crazy. There's a quote from Mike Tyson that says, "Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face."
yep,
You can
I've heard
train,
that.
and so that's why when you see amateur fights, it's wild because they look like they don't know what they're doing, and really they're really skilled people. They've been training their whole life, but it's like that
Mm.
adrenaline hits. You get punched in the face, and I was like rock'em sock'em. I'm just like a
Oh
band
my
still
God.
goes out the window, and it's just like chaos. So that was the first fight. It was very crazy, very
Oh
crazy
my
experience.
God.
Wow. You know what's funny is that I always have every time I dream and like I'm in a situation where I think I've told Allie this, but where I have to punch someone, I can't punch someone. I don't know what that means, but like in my dream, I'm dreaming where I go to punch someone and it like turns into slow-mo. And then like when I wake up, I'm
Mm.
like, would that happen in real life? I go to punch someone, everything slows down. Like I've never punched someone like really. Have you, Allie?
You've never punched your sister?
I I don't think so. We like threw shit at each other, like threw
Oh,
books, threw shoes, like that kind of thing.
no, we definitely got like violent, but then it's just like the two of us. So we were just like, I guess we should just like get over our shit. And then like I'd accidentally hit her too hard. She'd be like, oh, and I'm like, oh, come on. And then I'd be like, all right, you can punch me. And. But no, I've never had to either like defend myself or even in like a training type of capacity. But I would imagine, because when you're training, you never step foot in a cage to train, right? Like it's only you're in the cage when it's the actual event.
Well, they have like a lot of the gyms,
Okay.
especially where I was training, we would spar in a cage, but
Okay.
you're in the gym, you're
Yeah.
comfortable. You're in the gym,
Totally different.
everybody's doing their own thing. You're with your coach and your partner's coach, and you're sparring each other, or there's multiple people in the cage. So yeah, I trained in the
Okay.
cage because they want you to know what it feels like, and you got to
Sure.
practice
Mhm.
techniques against the cage and stuff like that for years. But yeah, being locked in the
Yeah.
cage in front
Mhm.
of a crowd, it's a different thing. Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, you're like, there's this, even though you're like, okay, it's my first fight, I've never done this before. There's just so much pressure. And as an athlete, you're competitive, you want to show up, you want to do your best, and you have a whole like family and friends and
Yeah.
everybody cheering your name. At some point, do you just kind of like black out to the noise? Or like as you're like in the fight, do you hear that? Because I feel like,
You hear some things.
yeah.
Yeah. I could pick out some things. Sometimes I could hear her coach, sometimes depending on where we were
Oh,
in the cage, I could hear her coach saying things to her. And then sometimes I'd be closer to my corner and I would
yeah.
hear my coaches. And then sometimes I'd hear my best friend scream out my last name in the crowd, like randomly, like just, you just kind of hear, but then, yeah, a lot of it is kind of blacked out. I mean, I can't remember
Holy
now
shit.
because it's been so many
Yeah.
years, but yeah, you
Mhm.
definitely
Oh
hear
my
things for
God.
sure when you're fighting.
I went to for my fiance's old boss. I think she only did like one amateur MMA fight. And it was so crazy. I was like, I could see why like I don't understand how there would ever be, I mean, it's the misogyny of it all, but like why people would ever say like, oh, no one would want to watch women. Because I'm in there, I've never seen that type of fight before. And I was literally out of my mind. I thought it was the most exhilarating thing. I thought it was so cool, so powerful. And that was like my first exposure to it. And then, as Maddie said, like when we all were in ICC together, I think it was called.
Yeah.
I was just like, holy shit, like this lady is so cool. And oh my God, could never
Yeah.
imagine myself doing that, but love it. Like, could you imagine yourself ever getting in the cage?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wanted to. When
Oh,
I was 20, I wanted to. I always wanted to fight. When I was a
I love
teenager,
that.
so funny story, like I'm stubborn. And now I've reproduced myself And now I have a stubborn daughter that I get to butt heads with every single day. And I'm like, oh my God, it's me. It's karma. It's me. It's me. It's me. I'm a very stubborn person. And when I was, 13-ish, there was a lot of my teammates that were older were doing kickboxing fights. There was a local promotion in upstate New York. That's where I'm from, at Lemoyne College. There was all these fights going on all the time. And I wanted to do it. And I felt like I'm tough enough. I spar with the boys, whatever, whatever. And I begged my coach, I begged my parents, and finally they were like, okay, you can do it, you can do it. So we go to do it, and then they're like, well, the commission or whatever was like, oh, because you're 14 and the other girl is 16, we're gonna make it an exhibition, meaning there's no winner or loser, but it's still the same rules, it's 3 rounds or whatever. I threw a fit. Like a toddler. I threw a fit. Like, no, if I'm gonna do it, it's not fair. If I'm gonna do it, there needs to be like that's how competitive I was. I was like, no, and people were like, but everybody will know who wins. And I'm like, no, if I'm gonna train like everybody else, I want to have a winner or loser. Even if I lose, I want to know. Sure enough, I lost. I lost my very first kickboxing fight. So there you go. Got what I wanted. And then after that, I went on the rest of my amateur fights I won. But yeah, I always wanted to do it. I don't know what it is in me. I think I had, again, there was the shy side of me, but I also had a lot of pent up aggression and anger again, because I was the type of person who held my tongue. I was shy. I was afraid to use my voice, and that was my way of letting it out. So I always gravitated towards the sparring and the fighting when I was a kid. And also psychologically, if I'm going to go into like Freudian stuff, my parents, when they would drop me off to karate, I was the drop off kid. They would not sit in the stands and watch. They were doing other shit. So they dropped me off, and my dad, he would only come and watch me on the sparring days. He just wanted to see his daughter beat up the boys. So, and my dad, I think, always wanted a boy, so he liked that aspect. So he would come in and he would ask the instructor like, what time are they sparring today? And they'd be like, in 20 minutes. And he'd like go do whatever and come back, only watch the sparring, and then go wait in the car. Then I would get like a dissertation of like, how come you didn't do this? Not that my dad knew anything about fighting, but again, or if I knocked down a boy, like in sparring, he'd be like, yeah, you knocked down a boy today. Hell yeah. So like, that was a big part of it too. It was highly encouraged from
Mm.
the one person that was watching me. So that made me want to do better. And I also just got to let that aggression out that I just could never do with my own voice.
Mm.
That's so interesting. And
Mm.
it's funny because I kind of felt the same way just when I think it comes to like coaching in general. I was so shy as a kid. Infamously, we would go like, I don't know. I remember it was like the last time I did this, we went to Chick-fil-A like after gymnastics practice or something. And we went to order, and my dad just knew how much I hated like speaking to people and talking. And he was like, I'm going to go up and you have to give your order or you're not eating. And I did not eat because I wouldn't give my order
Oh,
because I was just so scared to talk. And then it's
yeah.
like, fast forward how many years I am coaching CrossFit to people twice my age. I'm like, 20 years old, coaching 40, 50 men, women, everyone, and having to talk to people I don't know and be the, authoritative position. And that was like a huge curve for me. And it's kind of like I just said, like in our intro we were just doing before this, like how health and fitness is such a gateway to personal
Yeah.
development. Like a lot of people who, you know, usually people, I don't want to like put a label on people, but like you can kind of guess, even for myself, before I was into fitness in this realm, I wasn't thinking about these things that I was struggling with internally. And I'm sure a lot of people can agree with that who haven't started yet. They have things they're avoiding. But like once you get into it, it's like if I wouldn't have, got into CrossFit and coaching, like I wouldn't have realized how much of a growth curve I was going to have in my life. And I think that's cool that you had that like fighting, and
Yeah.
it gave you like you're a coach now, you're an authority, and probably without fighting you may not have gotten to that point.
100%. Yeah, definitely not. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I loved, even when I wasn't really thinking that like I could do martial arts as a career in any sort of way. I wanted to help people. I always knew like I liked teaching, I liked helping my friends, I liked psychology. I thought, oh, maybe someday I'll be a psychologist. I liked
Mm.
helping people with their problems. Like now here we are as coaches, and we're basically a psychologist, right? So, it's funny how
Literally.
it works out. Yeah. And then when in karate is the same thing. You sign up for karate and, you kind of think like, oh, I'm going to learn how to beat people up and whatever. Some people have that perception. But when you get into it, you realize how much, I mean, martial arts is a very heavy, has a very heavy side on personal development. Right from the beginning, you have a student creed, you have principles of black belt you have to recite. You learn about modesty, integrity, self-control, perseverance, self-confidence, goal setting. Like these were things that we learned every single week as kids. We would all sit down and huddle up, and the teacher would tell us, okay, this is modesty. This is what being modest means and humble. And oh, here's how you write your goals. Okay, when do you want to be a black belt? Write down your age. So it was something that was just ingrained in me as a kid through karate. But I agree with you that like all areas of fitness, because we see even people who come into our coaching containers for the first time, that they don't know how to set a goal. They just know they want to lose weight. They don't know how to do, how to do goal setting for themselves. They don't know how to find the good in anything besides just the scale, being a good finder. So like we're teaching them that self-development side as well, which is awesome.
Totally. And it's so interesting, Maddie, you being able to track how you kind of got to where you are, even just like the Chick-fil-A moment is ingrained with you, Trisha, the karate moment. I have always been told or overheard that I'm too much and I'm too loud. So there was a part of in my story where I dampened myself because I was always too loud. I was always doing too much. I was like, you need to stop. Like teacher, like it was always just like everybody around me, and I was like, but that's me. Like yes, I am really loud, and I am going to speak up and just like do things because like that's just what feels right to me. And so I think that part of watching and hearing people say like you are doing too much to me, I was like, well, then I can do too much and help other people. And like I can be that kind of voice to help them realize that like you can be more and you don't have to be afraid of like people saying like you're too much. And it was like as like, in high school, I was always like I would try to like talk quieter or like not be like as outspoken. And then like I don't know, one day I was just like, fuck that. Like that why? Like why do I have to try and like dampen myself to because somebody else is like uncomfortable with maybe that I am confident and that like I am gonna speak up and that I'm like not gonna just like allow people to like shit on other people. Like even though I was like low key bullied, I was like, well, I'm not gonna let you like talk crap about somebody else. Like so it's just so and then we get to like being adults and we're like, wow, like I can kind of trace back like how I got to
Yeah.
where I am as a coach and like why I stand for what I do. And I don't know if we do that enough. Like I definitely don't sit down and think about that enough because that speaks to who we are for our clients and in our business. And it's actually like a really important thing that we should do more often.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think there's anyone more themselves than like fighters. Like I don't know how much you've watched of MMA, Ali, or any kind of fights, but like I'll watch a few here and there, literally because of watching Joe Rogan. But I mean, everything from like when, and I don't know like all the terminology, but like when they have like that meeting where they're like
The face
that,
off.
yes, the face off, and they're like facing each other, and then like all of the shit talking beforehand, like they're not just like every other random person. Like they're like known for specific things and like the walking into the cage. Like
Mhm.
they are so in tune to themselves and their persona. And like I think that's like I gravitate towards people that are able to be themselves fully because I think it's so
Mm,
magnetic and it's just such a reminder like of how much you thrive when you are yourself compared to
Yeah.
when you are dimming your light to fit in. And I think that's like fighting is such a cool way because like you see that like so
Yeah.
much in them.
Well,
hmm
I always tell Lacey, who is all of our coach, as well, our business coach, like it's fighting for me, like my fighting career is so parallel to my business career because and my coaching career because there's so many similarities. And so you saying that, like it may look from the outside that like everybody has their own persona and it doesn't just come with being a fighter. Like I really struggled for years, even though I was fighting and I was confident when I was fighting, there were times where was dimming part of myself, when I was second guessing myself, when I wasn't really being my authentic self. That's when I struggled as a professional, and I had some losses. I had a little bit of a losing streak that I struggled with. And it was because I kind of lost that inner self-confidence of just being the fighter that I knew I was capable of being, because I was trying to fit into a mold of what I thought I should be, what I thought
Mm-hmm.
I should be doing, because other influences, and oh, well, this person says this, or this coach is trying to make me do this, or whatever. And it's so relatable to business and coaching, because sometimes we do the same thing where we're trying to fit into a mold instead of just being ourselves. And it just goes to show the ones that are the most successful fighters are the ones that are the most success or authentic self. And it's the same in health coaching and business and just in life in general. So it really is so parallel, because it doesn't just come with the territory. There's a lot of boring ass vanilla fighters who you would never even know of. You'll never see, because they're not exciting fighters. They don't really, put their heart into it. They're second guessing. They're not confident. They don't have fun walkouts. They don't have a cool persona. Some of it's manufactured, and some of it is like them just, okay, this is who I'm going to be. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to show. So there's a lot that goes into it, but that's a really interesting observation. But I think it's so parallel.
Yeah. It is, it is so, it's so funny. Your your fighting career to your business, like being able to draw those parallels, because I think whenever I'm able to do that, it forces me to be more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can look back on on that losing streak and you're like, well, what was happening in there? What was I going through? And then maybe like down months in business. What am I going through? And you're able to kind of like see those. And then on the other hand, like business is going great. You can be like, oh wow, like this kind of reminds me of that feeling, like being in the cage and being on that winning streak, and just like
Yeah.
I love to be able to draw. And that actually helps a lot of clients too when they're stuck in like you said, like I can't see anything else but the scale. When we're able to like
Yeah.
help them draw parallels to like things that they're doing great with in their personal life, it just makes them feel more confident and like, okay, I'm actually going to step into the person that I want to be, and that like who I know I can be, because I'm doing really great in these other areas of my life. Like I'm being authentic, I'm holding myself accountable, like I'm a fucking badass. Why, like, how can I bring that over into taking accountability like for my health and for my goals? And I think just like as a coach, when we're able to do that ourselves, we're setting that example. We're setting like the standard of we can do really great things. We just have to like be brave enough to be authentic, and also like be brave enough to call ourselves out sometimes and being like, you know what? You're kind of not doing what you need to do. And that's reflecting in whatever is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think on another big part of it too is like just that self-belief. Like
Yeah.
that is the biggest thing that's always held me back in my MMA career and in business or in any area of my life. It's my own self-belief, and I remember having a coach tell me before, and it was, I ended up winning the fight, but it was a really like pivotal moment. I could have turned my record into a further losing record, or I could have evened out my record and continued on like a winning streak. And I
Mhm.
remember him telling me like you are capable of winning, but you have to believe in yourself. He's kind of like shaking me like,
Yeah.
you are the only person that's holding you back. You are way better than this girl. You are capable of winning, but you have to believe it. Like, and it was just one of those moments that just always clicks in my head. And Lacey's had those shake moments with me too, that it's like,
Same.
you do the same thing with clients where it's like, like I know you can do it. I know I believe you can do it, but you don't believe that you can do it. And you're
Yeah.
sabotaging yourself. So I feel like we all do that. And then as coaches, we have the power to also like shake that out of people of like, hey, you're not believing in yourself. If you don't believe that you can actually do it and you don't change that identity about yourself, it's never going to happen. It's always going to feel forced. So I think that
Mhm.
was a big one for me. It's like once I started having that belief, everything started to change.
And what like would that kind of stuff, like that belief in yourself, was there things like a ritual you did like pre-fight that kind of helped to bring that up and like remind yourself? Like were there moments where you didn't have as, great outcomes, where you didn't have those pre-fight rituals that like then on the other hand, when you did have those really good outcomes, that you did differently? Because I would imagine
Yeah.
obviously you're training physically, right? You were doing all the work, but it's also so much of the mindset and that self-belief, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I look back at the fights that I lost compared to the ones that I won, maybe not so much about the rituals like right before, because those were all they're very powerful. And I always did the visualization, just, it's so powerful. Like I would listen to affirmation tracks, I would do meditation, I would visualize my hand being raised, I would play out the fight over and over in my head, every single different scenario. A lot of like mental visualization, a lot of mental affirmations and writing things out, and like a lot of mental work. But I think also the big difference is just, again, like not just that before ritual, but just the months leading up to that. Or sometimes I would only have weeks if I took something on a short notice. But yeah, the pre-fight ritual and the visualization and the mental side was definitely a big key. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the idea of you sitting there and visualizing yourself winning is so powerful. Because like if you can't even cook that up in your head, like you can't picture yourself doing
Yeah.
that, then that would be so hard to walk into and like hear that cage door lock and you're like, I haven't even pictured myself being able to win this. I just love the idea of like fighters sitting there just like getting ready in such a peaceful way. Like it's really grounding and then you go out there and like beat the shit out of somebody. Like
Peaceful with a ball of the most live wire anxiety you've ever felt in your life. Yeah.
yeah. Oh my God.
Peaceful when
That's
you look at
crazy.
them, but then inside they're literally like, there's a YouTube video. If you ever want to really know what's going on in a fighter's head, you got to look up Donald Cerrone. He's a former fighter, a very, very famous fighter. Never quite won a belt in the UFC, but was very, very well known and respected and everything. But he has this basically it's just kind of footage of him before the fight, and he's talking about what goes through his head. Mike Tyson has another one like that, and I used to watch those before I went out to fight because it made me feel seen, that like, damn, Mike Tyson, if Mike Tyson felt nervous walking out to the cage, and then he's talking about, and then you kind of hear his voice switch as he's getting closer to the ring, where he's talking about like, I'm the best, I'm the champion, I'm gonna, or I'd listen to like Muhammad Ali, like, all of these fighters, everybody is connected, we're all connected. And I think it's just so universal, the affirmations, the belief, all of that. But yeah, it's very crazy, like what goes on in your head before. It's a mess. You're fighting those inner demons while you're still like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm the champ, I can do it, I'm gonna win. But inside you're like, holy shit, what am I doing? What the hell am I
Mm.
even doing? Like I could just turn around right now, I could go home, I don't have to go
Yeah.
and like, so
No,
Wow.
I love that. And I think it was maybe like last month or so, I really started getting into like daily affirmations and like having more of a routine like to start the day that just set me up in a much more positive way because I grew up and my mom, I think she like kicks herself in the butt for this because she did it to herself because her mother kind of set her up for it. And my grandma, like I always say, she was not like she didn't like show love through like affection. She did it through like getting us things, buying us stuff, things like that. So my mom didn't grow up with a very warm figure, but someone who said like you're dumb, you're stupid, that kind of thing. So then my mom did that. I remember hearing her growing up saying like, "Oh, I'm so stupid," or drop a
yeah.
glass of water. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. And then I found myself doing that for a long freaking
Mm.
time. And I was like, you know what? I need to like deprogram myself from doing that because I'm such a believer in like what you tell yourself and what you say to yourself, like it becomes true. And,
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys can all resonate with like you have clients or beginning clients and they're like, I suck at doing this or I
Yep.
am the worst at doing this. And I'm like, of course you are because you keep telling yourself you
Yeah.
are. And
Yeah.
if we change the script to like, I'm so bad at tracking, I can't do it, to like, oh, okay, yesterday wasn't the best day at tracking because I kept telling myself I was the worst. So like then I played out being the worst. And today I'm gonna just track and not assign myself a label. And then they find
Mhm.
themselves changing the narrative. But all
Yeah.
to say is like fighting, like you're saying, like I'm like him, Tyson saying, I'm the best, I am the best over and over and over. Like you will start to believe that and act that way. And that's how you can change the narrative. But what we say about ourselves, I think is so powerful that a lot of people think it's like stupid. But now I'm like, every day, I'm like, I'm the freaking best coach there is. Like, no one's
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And then you show up that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're not your biggest cheerleader, who the fuck else is gonna be? Like if you don't believe in yourself enough to like hype yourself up in the mirror when nobody's home, why would anybody else? And I kind of resonate with the I do a lot of negative self-talk over like the dumbest thing, like literally the smallest things. Like if I knock over a coffee, I'm like, what the fuck, Allie? Come on. And I'm like, but why? But like, is it really the end of the world? And I've started to, over the past couple of years, like I'll do something and I just pause and I'm like, not that big of a deal. You know what? All good. Like now I'll remake my coffee. It's no big deal. And
Mhm.
it creates less of an internal reaction of like, oh, I've done something wrong and now it's a mess. And oh my God, it's this big thing. And it starts so simple with just like talking to yourself or not making big reactions out of things. And then you start to come into this person that is just more confident, more self-assured without even really noticing and trying because like you're watching how you speak. Maddie actually shared with me this like spreadsheet thing we were doing, and it said like we're like morning affirmations, and I found myself deleting the column, and I go, well, why did I do that? I go, no, I should start doing that. And it was like, I don't think I told her that, but it was like just this like
No.
internal, I was like sitting in my office and I was like, delete. And then I go, okay, edit, undo, because like, why did I think that like I don't need to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know, it was like this weird moment, but the more that we pour into ourselves and like just remind ourselves how amazing that we can actually live that out. And again, like what Maddie was saying, just like in the fighting realm, you gotta believe you are the best because you're walking into a situation that like it is dangerous. And so if you're not confident in your training and trusting yourself, that I mean, that could be like really scary. So like you almost need that like that big ass ego and like a little bit of narcissism to be like, I'm the best.
Yep.
I got this. Like I have been training. You're like sitting there, you're doing your like visualizations. Oh man, that's everything. And like, how do you think that part of you like plays into being a mom of a daughter as well?
It's huge, man. Kids are a mirror. They are a
Yeah.
freaking mirror. And like what you said, Maddie, we catch ourselves, myself and my husband sometimes, like she'll just repeat the things that you don't even realize that she picked up, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be so careful because that they're sponges. And when she plays out with her toys, when she's playing her toys, she's recreating scenes of her own life. You know what I mean? With Minnie Mouse and Daisy Duck and Elmo toys. And so the things that we say about ourselves, even if we don't think that they're listening, they are listening. They are sponges. And just like how you experience, Maddie, like the things that you would hear your mom say about herself, it's like we have to be so careful as parents, or if you're around children or anybody young, like it's just so it's so important, and just and like I'm, always asking her or like having her do affirmations like, I'm beautiful, I'm strong. She actually had a babysitter when we lived in Florida that would do this. That was so wonderful. She would make all the kids kind of chant with her, like, I'm beautiful, I am strong, I am the best.
Mhm.
And she had all these things she would say. And it was just a good reminder for me that like I need to do that more with her because that is so if we can like start kids out with that, they're going to be so much further ahead. We all kind of found it later on through our different influences and avenues of health and sports and things we were a part of. But imagine if you were just like that at 2 years old, you just learned to be like that.
Yeah.
So it's so powerful. And over the years, I went through some years where I was a little bit bitter and I was a little bit, through different phases of my life of things ending when my I had to, leave my karate school and I kind of got out of karate for a while and then I got more into MMA, but then I retired from MMA. And it's like when I went through those time periods, I kind of felt like, well, that part of me is over. And so I don't need to do the visualization or the affirmations. I wasn't logically thinking that, but that was like in subconsciously, it was in the back of my head that like,
Hmm.
I don't need to do that anymore. When I was in my early 20s and I was in the karate school where I was learning how to be a karate school owner, we were going through like business training, like what we do with Lacey. And a lot of the stuff is stuff that I did like 15 years ago. And so sometimes in my head, I'm like, journaling, affirmations, like, oh, I used to do that every day. Like, and I would wake up at 21 years old. I'd be waking up at 5:30 a.m., writing my goals and my affirmations. And then sometimes I have to slap myself and be like, why do I think I don't need to do that anymore? Just because
Mm.
I did it when I was young, I still need to do it. And so for me, it's that reminder that like it doesn't stop just because what I'm doing is different. It has to continue. So it's a good reminder.
I love that. Like, not again, not me getting emotional, but just the idea of hearing you like being with your daughter in that way that's like so present and like
I love that too.
encouraging her into these like positive affirmations, just like that is something that she's going to grow up with and just feel so just
Mhm.
confident and self-assured, and she's just going to remember those things on a level. And it's like
I
if we
hope
can
so.
just all
Yeah.
do that, like, oh my
A
God,
lot of,
like
a lot of pressure.
but it's so
I'm
beautiful.
really
Like
trying not to screw her up. I'm really
oh
trying.
No, you
It's hard.
trust
girl,
me.
you know what? It's the trauma of it all. Like the idea of like we want kids, and it's just like I'm so afraid to screw it up. But the thing is, I think if you have that fear,
You're not.
you're
Yeah.
already doing
Yeah.
better, and you're going to, make better choices. And it's just like, oh man, just like watching like you being such like a badass fighter and then just like having these like tender moments with her. I'm like, oh my God, like it just, I don't know, it just makes my heart just like sing. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've shared the story like a million times, but like way back
Yeah.
when my grandpa called me fat when I was like 6 years old. And I always think back to that. Like a lot of my like body dysmorphia kind of started from like a young age, and I looked very different from my sister. And I just wanted to look like my older sister. And I always think back to that. Like my mom had a skewed relationship with her dad, my grandpa, and he was just like a hard man, like the era of the Great Depression, like very different people.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing she really did was be like, Dad, you can't say that, right?
Yeah.
But like I remember the memory of him telling me that, me crying, and then him yelling at me for crying. But I
Mm,
don't have any memory of my parents saying like, don't listen to him, or you know
Yeah.
putting me in a positive space. And the fact that you are doing that now, like that hopefully there's a lot more parents, I think there are now, that are realizing the importance of like building up their kids' confidence and how much that's going to help them. I mean, that him telling me that literally affected me for like, I don't know, probably 20 years,
yeah.
from 6 to like 26. And if I had a more positive, and my mom isn't the most confident person, like if she would instill that earlier, it probably would have changed things. Not that I would say like I
Yeah.
wish she would have, but yeah, a little bit, of course,
Yeah.
but the fact that you're doing that, like that's super awesome. Like I just like wish every parent could listen, every mom could listen to this and realize like what you say and how what you instill makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so powerful
I
for sure.
love that. I love that. And just like imagining her, like, you said she's 3 now?
Be 3 next week. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God. Happy birthday. Um, I can't like wait for that moment where you can really like share with her all that you've done and like your career, and just like she's gonna be like, damn, my mom is so cool. Like you have done some incredible things that I just like I just feel like most people don't get to experience or even like have these types of conversation. Like I know nobody personally that has like done things like you
Same.
have. And I think that just speaks to just like your character and the path that you're carving out for yourself, because you're willing to do some crazy ass shit. And that
Yeah.
takes so much confidence. Like so many people, they're blocked by like their lack of self-belief, and that's why that's why it's hard for our clients to come to us in the first place, because they're like, I can't do it, it's just going to be a waste of money because I'm never going to follow through. And it's like they don't believe in themselves, and we work with them, but we can't create self-belief. Like that just comes from you doing all of the work. And I just think it's so cool. I'm gonna like literally be thinking about these moments when I'm like having like low self-belief. I'm gonna be like, well, Trisha stepped in a fucking cage and she did some crazy shit.
Oh, God. I want to do a little
Remind myself.
segue.
What's
Yeah.
that? Yeah. Go
I was
ahead.
saying, I want to do a little segue. I don't know when you met your husband, but so
Yeah.
many women are nervous. I wouldn't say like my audience as much now, maybe in the beginning, but like of lifting weights, of looking stronger. And we are complimenting like your arms are fucking amazing. Like I wish my arms looked like that. Like, did you struggle with any, I don't know, like when you met your husband, like when you were dating, because fighting is so masculine. Like, did you struggle with meeting people or getting comments, or what was that like?
Well, he was a fighter as well, so
Oh,
I have that
perfect.
going for me.
Slay.
Yeah, but yeah, and I mean, I would say I did actually struggle with a lot of body dysmorphia and body image issues. Even though I did karate my whole life, I was not like lean and fit throughout the whole time. I wasn't. And I was actually, I had a pretty decent self-image. I would watch, I had friends in middle school that I would see them go through eating disorders and stuff like that. And, it would make me sad. And I never really felt the urge to do that. But
Mhm.
also, I really was not happy in my body, and I always felt like I was the bigger one. I always felt like I was the thicker one. I never had the thigh gap. I grew up in the 90s. The thigh gap was the big thing. The skinny,
Yeah.
big boobs, thigh gap, tiny waist, and I was not that. I've always had big legs. So thank God the times have changed. But, it's just I always struggled with that, with my own self-image. So I didn't really go through that as much in dating, because I think I always kind of, even before my husband, it might have been another fighter or somebody who was at least athletic. I always kind of went for somebody that was somewhat into health and
Yeah.
fitness inherently, or that was in it with me. But yeah, it can definitely be hard, especially because we're still, I think, in that a little bit of that era with women like not wanting to be bulky and
Yeah.
not wanting to look bigger, and like maybe logically they're like listening to us and they're like, well, I know I need to lift weights to lose weight, but also like my arms and legs are already big. Like I don't want them to get bigger.
Mhm.
And so that can be really hard. But I think that now, again, I see the tide changing. I'm sure you guys have seen, I'm gonna mess up her name, the rugby player, Alana,
Oh, I love her.
right? Hello, is she the
Ilona
best? Yeah,
Mar, yeah,
Alana
Yes.
love her.
Amazing.
She absolute
The
queen.
best. So the more women we have like that, like I wish I had her when I was a teenager, you know?
Yeah.
The more
Same.
women we have like her, I think is just going to help women, young girls in general, not be afraid of the body parts we have that are different size than maybe
Yeah.
what the Fashion Nova model looks like, or whatever.
Victoria, what is it?
Yeah,
The
secret,
the
whatever the thing is.
angels,
Right.
right?
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's I definitely I did struggle with it for sure.
Mhm.
Maybe not so much with, dating my husband because he was a fighter, but definitely with my own body image, yeah, of being the bigger person. And um when I was fighting, I actually did kind of force myself to go to a smaller weight class because I'm short. I'm 5'4". Not, I wouldn't say that's short. It's medium. But
Yeah.
for fighting, a lot of girls my weight would be 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", and I
Oh,
really, really struggled with the height difference. So I would try to cut more weight so I would be with girls that are more my height. And yeah, so I definitely just went through years of body dysmorphia and trying to make myself be smaller, smaller, smaller.
Hmm.
Now I don't give a shit. Now I'm like, I want to bulk up. Like I want to give me Alana's back. Give me
Yes.
you guys are friends
yeah.
with Taryn from our group as well. Like give me Taryn's back
Yep.
and legs,
Oh
and
my God. Yeah,
I
I
love
know.
Rhea Ripley in WWE. Like I'm looking at like I want the muscles. Like I want the
Yeah.
muscles. Give me bulk. Like I want a bulk. So, it's different now. But yeah, for years I did struggle with it for sure.
Well, and just speaking about like when you were growing up and you're fighting and you're trying to, fit into certain weight classes. And then we think about who the women were being amplified at the time. Like we talked about this probably episode 4. Jessica Simpson used to be like, she's fat. Oh my God, she's so fat. Look at this picture. It was blown up all over the magazines. And reflecting back, it's like, what the fuck were people like? She is totally like, that was a normal average size body. This
Right.
was
Yeah.
nothing crazy, but it was just so like heroin chic, and you have to be so tiny. And it's like
Mhm.
this crazy skewed perception. So of course, when we're growing up in that, it's like I'm always trying to make myself smaller, and in a way like physically smaller, but also maybe just like take up less
Yeah.
space, like less power. And then to have women and athletes today that are so strong, and they're also so feminine and powerful, and they
Yeah.
use their voice. It's like that's such I'm so happy that we can have younger women now growing up into this type of culture, and just realizing that like your body is so powerful and it doesn't make you any less feminine. It's not a bad thing. It's not something that you should try and dim. Because again, like you said, your husband and other people you dated were like fighters and athletes. So you didn't necessarily experience that, but I'm sure there are women out there that are kind of afraid to step into this power because like, oh, like what if like someone doesn't think it's attractive or whatever sad
Yeah.
story is running through your head because
Yeah.
unfortunately that is probably a story that's running through a lot of ladies' heads.
Yeah. And I would say to that, like if that is even the case, because maybe there are guys that are not attracted to that, and that's fine, you know, or people or whatever. But I think you going back to like our authentic self, like the more authentic you are about yourself, your body, who you are, how you look, you know, we're all so unique. We all have such unique features. And you'll find the person that finds you attractive, and you'll find the person that you find attractive, quality internally and externally, you know?
Yeah.
So I think yeah, it is definitely a big fear for women. But again, like I just go back to that, like you just got to keep looking for those role models. You got to find your people
Yeah.
that are going to appreciate you and your body, you know,
Mhm.
and you have to appreciate it. That's the biggest.
Yeah, that's like the first and foremost. We've
Yeah.
for probably a large portion of like most people's lives, they're living for somebody else. They're trying to be somebody else. Like I talked about in the pre-interview part, like I always had long blonde hair, bleached to the gods. I was like, this is what I've always been told. I am the most beautiful. It looks the best. And then one day, just like that switched, and I was like, but I don't necessarily feel the most beautiful that way, or I don't need that way. Like that doesn't define us. And when you can step into that power, it's like, holy shit, then you just like skyrocket because you're like, well, I'm actually doing things and for myself, and I'm not trying to just fit into what other people are telling me is beautiful or what I should do. And I think that's just kind of like really powerful. And I think most people experience that at some point in their lives. And it makes me sad for people that don't ever get to experience that. They don't come into that power.
100%. I mean, I know, and you guys both probably have coached women that are even in their 60s that
Yeah.
they, you know, 60s
Mhm.
or up. You know, I had a woman, one of my clients, and I love her and she's amazing. But I constantly have to tell her, like, you're a badass. You're like 66 and you're like outlifting other women in the gym. And she'll be like, yeah, but when am I going to get rid of my stomach? And like, there's literally no stomach. There's no
Yeah.
stomach. Like, what are you talking about? That's your uterus. You still have a uterus in your body. That's where your uterus lives and your other organs. And so I just feel like women that we're so quick to just pick out the parts of our body we don't like instead of learning how to accentuate the areas that we do have, you know, and that it's okay that like my big thing now, and especially post athlete, like when I was fighting, I did have a six pack, but I was miserable. I had a six pack for a couple days. And then because everything I was doing was so extreme, I would gain the weight back. And then for the rest of the 3 months in between when I wasn't fighting, I was not walking around with a six pack and I did not feel confident in my body and I would hide my body and I would wear baggy clothes and I was not confident when I was an athlete. Yes, when I was fighting because I was at my peak, but in between, not so much because I was just like holding this image of perfection of when I fought. And if I wasn't that, then I wasn't happy with my body. Now, postpartum, post athlete career, I don't want a six pack. I don't care about a six pack. And I'm trying to help other women realize like you don't have so you have a little bit of belly fat. Who cares? Look at your shoulders, look at your legs, look at your glutes. That's just listen, you had a baby, you went through this, you had an injury, you know, that's okay. These parts we can keep working on, but forget about that for a second and look at all of these other things. So that's the big message that I feel like I really underneath try to relay to my clients in coaching. It's like it's that self-love, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. I
No,
love
I
that.
agree with that. And that's something I think.
Hard to promote that in a reel, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not
No,
it's not a good caption, it's not a good hook, but
no, and
it's
but
like what
that's
we do on the
something.
inside, you know?
Yeah, you can we all know when it comes to like, marketing and things like that, like, we can't always sell that because people don't want to hear that. But when
Yeah.
they get into our coaching worlds, like we can instill those things through that and eventually over time and they're more open to it. But yeah, it can be hard to get people to understand that, especially because like it's just like I want to weigh less, I want to be smaller, I
Hmm.
want to, and you can do all those things. It's just like it's just not about hating yourself. You're not going to hate yourself there.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Oh my,
will by doing the things that loving yourself will get you there.
Mhm.
right. And it reminds me in like, I talk about this all the time, but in like 2019, I was diagnosed with a panic disorder called agoraphobia. And it's a lot, right? We're in a great place now, but it like fucking like, it was like a bully picked me up by my ankles and just like shook the fuck out of me. And like everything was just falling apart. And I ended up gaining like 30 pounds. And I was working with a previous coach at the time. It was a horrible experience. And then finally I was like, Kelsey, like, fix me, like, please help me, take care of me. And I didn't really care for what she had to say at the beginning. I was like, I just need to like lose weight now. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'll do whatever. Like, I'm so miserable. And we always talk about that. And then, like, 3, 6 months later, I was like, okay, like, I'm ready to take a break and we can, focus back on my metabolism. And like, I knew all those things. Like, I'm a
Mhm.
coach, I do that. But when we want something so bad, it's hard to listen to like
Yeah.
what we really need. But that, I think that gets to be okay. Like, whatever gets you in the door, and
Yes.
then we can actually help the client. We like to talk about that all the time. I'm like, yeah, like it's almost coming up on like our 2-year anniversary. And I'm like, I didn't need to listen to you, but like part of it was just like, I need you here. And it's just so silly because now looking back, it's like, yeah, I probably could have, done things that were a little bit smarter, but I didn't want to listen to that. Um, and I think sometimes that's what we have to speak to women on, to
Yeah.
what they just like they want so that we can help them in a way that is safe for them. They feel like, okay, this makes sense. This is approachable. And then we can do more of the hard work like what you're talking about. We get
Yeah.
to dig a little bit deeper because like that's scary. Like doing the deep work is
Yeah.
scary when you're just starting, but as coaches, we know how powerful it really is. And like that's where the real success comes from doing that, like the journaling and the self-love and all of this other stuff that
Yeah.
like it feels vulnerable, but that's where like the magic like really happens. And I love that as three coaches that do different things, we can all come together and be like, that's the powerful shit. Like that's where the
Yeah.
magic is.
Yeah.
Um, because it's just like, ugh, it makes so much more of a difference than just like being the type of coach that would be like hyper fixating on the scale or pictures or whatever
Yeah.
type of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
No,
my TED
I
talk.
enjoyed. Well, thanks for Allie's TED Talk, but I enjoyed this conversation so much. Like I wasn't like sure what direction we were really going to go into. I knew we were going to talk about fighting, but again, health and fitness is such the freaking gateway to personal development, and it's cool to see the parallels you had with your fitness career with fighting and how it influenced your business coaching and that mentality, and that was just super cool. So where can our listeners find you, or how can they work with you?
Yeah. Instagram or Facebook at Trisha Cicero, just my name. And I do have a, knock out your fat loss membership, which is, workouts, it's community, it's, challenges. So that's where most of my clients actually get started nowadays, is inside of my monthly membership. But you can find all that info on my Instagram. So
And we'll put
Awesome.
that below in the show notes so you guys can just do. Any parting words, Trisha, that you want to leave everybody with?
well, I thank you guys for being able to share my story. And I think just if I could impart anything, it's finding. I think the big message that we can take from this today that we talked about, it's finding that inner self belief, whatever avenue of fitness, health, sport that you're doing, whatever journey you're on, finding that self belief, and really identifying with the fact that like you can do it, you can accomplish it, and whatever it is that gets you in, like you're just trying to lose weight for vacation, or you're just trying to lean out after summer, or whatever it is, to just keep going and just to embrace the journey. It might not turn out the way you expect, but to like what Allie was saying, it might turn out to something even better. So, believe in yourself, stick to it. And yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I always keep talking and I really could just hit pause for that. So we'll cut that.
Thank you guys so much for listening or watching the Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy. Please make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share this with your girlfriend who needs to build that inner self belief. I think that was a really good synopsis of that
Yeah.
interview with Trisha. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you can stream podcasts. If you have a burning question about life, friendship, health, and 1 or 2 cents, email us at kindahotpod@gmail.com. That's KINDAHOTPOD@gmail.com. Bye.
Bye.